This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and we love making this show available to you free of charge. If you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar. For more information, go to our website. Today I've baked a batch of cookies and cream cupcakes. If you've ever wondered what it would look like to put a cupcake and a cookie together, well, this is it. They're stunning to look at, fun to make, and the kids will love them. We'll begin by getting our muffin pan ready, and I have a 12-cup muffin pan. I'm going to start by putting some paper liners in each of the wells. And I do this because it makes it so much easier to clean the pan when I've baked in it. And then I have a little bit of baking spray, and I'm just going to spritz on the top. I'm not concerned about getting the spray in the muffin, but I do want to spray on the pan a little bit. That's just in case the cupcakes puff over and start to cook on the pan. It will be easy for them to release. I'm going to set this aside and get a half a cup of butter out of the refrigerator. And with my knife, I'm going to cut it in half lengthwise twice. And then run my knife through it to make these little cubes of butter. Now I'm going to be using my standing mixer today to make these cupcakes, but if you have a hand mixer, that will work fine too. And I'll put the butter in along with 2/3 of a cup of sugar. Now I'm going to put this on medium speed, and I'm going to let it blend for about 4 minutes until the butter and sugar is nice and fluffy. Now while the butter is creaming, I'm going to get the dry ingredients together. I'm using some all-purpose flour. I'm going to lighten it up with my knife and level off 1.5 cups of flour and put that into a bowl, along with 1.5 teaspoonfuls of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to take my little whisk and whisk those ingredients together. It's really important that we get the baking powder and the salt mixed throughout that flour. Now that the butter and sugar is nice and fluffy, I'm going to turn the speed down to low, and I have 3 eggs. And I'm going to add these eggs one at a time into the mixer, making sure that they blend nicely between each one. And then it's time to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now once the eggs and vanilla have mixed in pretty well, you're going to see that the butter has kind of flung along the side of the bowl, and we want to make sure we get that incorporated. So I'm going to take my spatula, so scrape that down along with your beaters, and give that a spin for a few seconds. Now once it all comes back together, we're going to alternate with our flour mixture, and I've measured out 1/4 cup of milk, and you can use any kind of milk that you like. I'm actually using a 1% today. So I'm going to put the mixture on a low speed because I don't want the flour to fling all over the kitchen. And I'm going to take and put about 1/3 of the flour into the mixer. And then add half of this milk, add another 1/3 of the flour, the rest of the milk, and then the rest of the flour. And then we'll want to scrape the bowl down, making sure there's no flour on the sides. Give it a little spin. And now we're going to add some cookie crumbs to the batter. I'm using a chocolate sandwich cookie. Here in the States we call them Oreos, but any kind of chocolate cookie that has a little bit of a cream filling will work great. And I have 10 of those, and I'm going to put them into a zip bag and seal it, except for maybe the last inch or so, because I do want a little bit of the air to come out. And I'm going to put this flat on my board, and I'm going to take a rolling pin and I'm just going to roughly break these up. I don't want them to be so fine like if we were making a cookie crust. I don't want them to be that fine, but these are obviously too big. So we need to just kind of break them up a little bit. And then I'm just going to feel around with my hands and make sure I don't have any large pieces of cookie. And now we're going to put the cookies into our batter. I'm going to be folding them in because if I were to put them in and put them on the mixer, it would start to break them up even more. And like I said, I don't want them to be crumbs. I want a little bit of texture. And so I'm just going to take my spatula and stir those in. Now we're going to fill our cupcake pan. So I'm using my medium cookie scoop. And what's most important as we're filling our little liners is that we get an even amount of dough in each one. So that's why I start with using sort of a smaller scoop in each one. So we start off with each well having a little bit of batter, and then I go back and just top each of them off with the rest of the batter. Now by the time you divide up the batter, they should be about 3/4 full like this. And if you find you have any little drips, do take a paper towel and scoop those up. We don't want that to burn in the oven. Now I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and these are going to bake for about 18 minutes, but I will test them with a toothpick to make sure they're baked through. Now I'm going to let these sit in the pan for 10 minutes to cool. Then off to the side I have a cooling rack, and I'm going to take a fork and just lift these out and set them on the rack to cool the rest of the way. Now while the cupcakes are cooling, we can get our frosting made. So I'm going to be using my standing mixer again. I have my whisk attachment on, but if you have a hand mixer, that will work fine. And out of the refrigerator, I've taken 1/2 cup of butter and run my knife through it lengthwise again and cutting it into some small little cubes. We'll put that in the mixer bowl. And to that, I'm going to be adding some powdered sugar. Now some people like to sift their powdered sugar. If you want to do that, you absolutely can. I find that with my whisk attachment that it gets all the lumps out, but you do whatever you need to do. And I'm going to put that 2 cups right into my butter, along with 2 tablespoons of milk and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to lower the mixer. I'm going to start this on a low speed, and then once things start to come together, I'm going to gradually start increasing the speed. Now this is supposed to be a really light and fluffy frosting, so you're going to want to let this go for at least 4 or 5 minutes. Now after a minute or so, you can see some of the butter can get kind of flung against the side and trapped in the beater. I want to take my spatula and scrape that down and then keep it spinning. At this point, it should be on a pretty high speed. Now you can see the longer we beat the frosting, the fluffier it gets. Now today 4 minutes looks just right, and you can see this is really fluffy. That's what I'm going for. Now I also want to put some cookies into the frosting, so I have 10 more cookies, but this time I'm not going to bash them up with my rolling pin. I'm actually going to get a knife, and I'm going to cut these into some smaller pieces. So I'm going to take the cookie, cut it in half, and then run my knife through it, almost chopping them up. I'm going to take and put those right into my frosting. Again, folding that in. But before I start frosting, I want to get the garnish ready for them. So I'm taking 6 of my sandwich cookies, and with my knife, I'm just going to cut them in half. And then I'll just stick a little half in the top of each one. Now, once your cupcakes are totally cool, you can go ahead and frost them. I use a little offset spatula, but you can use any kind of knife you would like. And I like to take a nice big glob of icing and then just put a little bit of cookie right on top. Because this frosting is so chunky with that bits of cookie in it, you're just going to almost place the frosting on top of the cupcake as opposed to spread it like other frostings. And another thing I wanted to mention is that I'm using the chocolate sandwich cookie today, but you really could take any cookie that you like and fold it into not only the batter of the cupcake, but also into the frosting. And as long as you put a little sliver of the cookie on top, it'll be fantastic. If you'd like to give these cookies and cream cupcakes a try at home, just go to our website and go to the Cupcake show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And if you do make them, be sure to send me a photo or a video clip so that I can send you the cupcake badge. Make sure to join us on Facebook. That's where we post all these great photos and videos that we get from our viewers. And as always, if you have any questions or ideas for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.